With education funding a prominent issue on the ballot, this week we revisit Red for Ed. The historic movement led Arizona lawmakers to approve more money for teacher raises. Recently, we assembled a panel of teachers from southern Arizona to ask what challenges remain in the classroom. Combined, their experience totals nearly a century. They come from major districts in the Tucson metro area, plus a charter school in the Bava-Kiveri district on the Tohono O'odham Reservation. Our discussion began with a question about teacher pay. So according to the Arizona Auditor General, the average teacher in the state of Arizona makes about $48,000 a year. Show of hands, are any of you in that, are you the average?
My base salary is below the average, but with all the additional things such as a leadership position I've taken on in the district, coaching the soccer team, and doing after school tutoring program, that pushes my salary right close to that range.
Holly, you also raised your hand.
My district starts teachers at 51.
Okay.
And so that's one of the biggest things out there. And I think because, we are way out there on the nation to get teachers to work themselves.
Red for Ed happened last academic year. Show of hands, how many of you participated? All right. How many of you think it will make a difference going into this academic year?
I'm hopeful.
I hope so.
Yes.
All right. Let's start with you, Rebecca. What do you think?
I hope that there's been an awareness level that has increased among parents and among the general community. I hope that people are realizing that there's a real need to fund our schools, and that hopefully they will keep that in mind in November when they're voting for candidates who are willing to do that.
I found the movement also helped raise awareness amongst my fellow teachers who were unable to, who had never seen how things worked at the Capitol. Myself, I didn't even know how divided it seemed at times.
Lisa, over in the charter schools, some charter schools remained open, carry the same weight?
Our participation had a different shape. We were, doing events at the school and trying to educate our students at the same time as some of us were joining the Capitol. And it's, sort of like God or Tinkerbell. I mean, if you believe in it, it will come, right? So we have to kind of keep believing.
Lawrence, I gather you were somewhat skeptical of what maybe the end game is.
Well, I really was. I looked at it and I felt to myself, yeah, we're going to the state, but I want everybody to realize the state does not cut us a check. Our checks come from the local districts. Part of what upset me most, and I just want to explain to everybody, I missed 20 days of instruction with my algebra students last year in my class. And with all the district required testing we had to do and then being locked out, really felt bad that all those days missed. So I was really upset that we didn't really start turning it locally and acting locally to get the people involved locally. I mean, that's where we can have the biggest impacts on our salaries.
If education is such a big part of this state, what do voters need to consider about the people in front of the students?
One of the misconceptions, I think, is that it's being a political movement and we're all a bunch of left-wing, we want to socialize everything and that. We're teachers. We're like any other group of professionals. We're very diverse.
When I feel that things have gotten to a point where I need to actually walk out, it's because I see that my children are hurting. And I think that sometimes there's been this focus on teacher pay, teacher pay, teacher pay. And while that is a part of it, I think people forget that it's not really all about the teachers, it's all about the kids.
We love working with kids and love what we do. Like, we didn't get into it to be rich, and I think sometimes those type of comments hurt.
Outside of salaries, what are some of the challenges that you face in the classroom?
It's tough. Like as I said before, you have to have a strong constitution because you will see the stories that you will hear and things that come around. You have to be the positive adult experience that a child will have every day. If you go into work every day thinking that, you're going to make the kids feel better. Our job is to uplift them and bring them up.
Some of them just don't want to be in a school for some reason. Like, it doesn't fit or it doesn't gel with their personality. And so, to help them overcome that, like fear or resistance to something that's very new and unfamiliar, it definitely takes a lot of patience.
Anybody just want to dip out and say, I'm done with this, I can do something else with my future?
Yeah,
Guilty.
of course, yeah.
Okay. Why?
When I was working at CVS, my second job, I was working with kids all day and then not getting home till 10:30 at night. I was just so exhausted. And I kind of felt, disrespected in a way, because I feel like we work so hard and going to college ourselves, and just, teachers we weren't getting the respect that we deserve. I was always telling my husband, I'm like, if I can find a school that pays teachers what they're worth, I'll teach forever. And and I found that with my district, I'm very thankful. But it wasn't easy for me in the beginning.
I've had those moments, especially after very emotional days. I spent most of my teaching career in elementary school, and 5 years ago I moved into the middle school. And I love it, but boy, those kids have very different issues. And so I never had to deal with children showing me cuts, self-inflicted cuts up their arms, children telling me their plans to kill themselves. And when you have 3 or 4 of those in, 2-week time period, there are days I would come home and just say, I can't do this anymore. I just don't know if I have it in me. And then of course my husband says, well, somebody's got to do it, and you love them and they love you. And I'd pick myself up and I'd go right back in, and I have great colleagues that I work with too. So I have that kind of support system there.
There's a perception from people who are outside the education industry that you have it easy, or that you get your summers off, you get holidays off. How do you guys really feel about that when people from the outside say that?
It would be easy to walk away from the profession if I just didn't love the population that I work with and the things that I get to do. And some days I come home and I say, I can't believe I got paid to do this today. We played Scrabble, we learned how to spell some new words, and we hit this milestone. So yeah, sometimes I do feel like I got it easy, and then I have to pay the bills.
And I want to make this clear, the two of you are happily married and educators.
Yes.
And that can be a challenge financially sometimes.
Very much so. It's very hard on a 2-teacher income. We've both been teaching long enough that we do okay. We bought our house long ago enough that we aren't, over our heads on a mortgage. My husband's very handy, so we don't have to pay for plumbers and electricians and things, and my father-in-law as well. But when big things arise and there's just no money to do it, when you have to decide, do we get a new roof or do we get braces for our kids? Because there's not money for both. It can be very frustrating and very difficult.
If I could wave a magic wand and put a dollar amount and just fix education in Arizona, is that enough to take it to the next level, to make your jobs more manageable, to really influence these kids?
Just the financial question, it's the foundation that's needed. I mean, if we go back to pre-recession spending on education and lift it up to the pre-recession level plus whatever inflation would factor in between those years and now, then we have a foundation equivalent with some of the states that we are not stacking up to. So no, there's so much more than money behind a good education, but it's what we need to stand on.
But if we look at where we fall behind, teacher to student or student to teacher ratio, we're one of the worst in the nation. That's cured with money for more teachers. We have a shortage of teachers. Again, if I can make more money teaching next door, I'm going to go next door. We have outdated materials. That's not free. So, again, like you said, there are a lot of other things involved. But boy, being able to fund it adequately would sure be a great step in the right direction.
And to tag along to that, it's really a technology piece. Our students we have now need to have technology. And everybody else has to understand now, everybody who went to school in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, your child is not going to be just happy just doing everything pen and pencil. You want to really engage them. You got to have that technology piece there. And there really needs to be a big push in our districts. That's why when you see wasteful spending in the district, it just drives you nuts.
We initially came up with this idea during the Red for Ed movement, and we're grateful that all of you are sharing your experiences. We want to know, though, what is next? Where does it go from here? Because we knew there were rallies in Phoenix at the Capitol, and everyone said, remember in November. Here we are in the fall, we're approaching an election. Is it really over?
I think that's a personal thing for each teacher. I look at my own school site where I was the site liaison for Red for Ed, and we have teachers who are still very active painting their car windows, organizing walk-ins, talking to friends and neighbors, going to political events, but you can feel that the momentum is not quite where it was before.
I totally agree, and like she mentioned how maybe teachers are not as fully into it. We kind of calmed down a bit, but I have faith in teachers, to bring it back up because November is basically here.
as someone who works in a sector where there's a lot of public misinformation, I think that public education is probably just as important at this point as the education we're doing in the classrooms if this movement is really to build some muscle and make a political impact in the profound ways that it seems to want to.
I think it's, we should start on your ballot locally. Look at your local elections first, and then go all the way up through to your state and get to know them and really ask them, for, the help that we need to keep our schools.
Thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.